Good afternoon, dear teachers, and welcome to our first session of this 3-day program. So sana po we had a hearty lunch, pero wag naman po sana sobrang busog. Baka po hindi tayo makakonsentrate sa ating session this afternoon. So I hope po that you also had no problem joining our FB group page kasi nandun po up ang ating attendance link for this session. And that's also where we will post the presentations of our speakers. After po their sessions, of course. Yes po, reminder lang po to accomplish the attendance link on our FB group page to record po your attendance in our synchronous sessions. Of course, our membership link po is also up on our FB group page, as well as the assessment tool that I told you about this morning, yung ating pong Word file that you're supposed to download. So again po, yung membership link natin, nandun po sa ating FB group page. Para po sa mga may unstable internet connection. So remember po, I told you this morning that this is also being streamed via YouTube on our FB group page. So pwede nyo pong balikan yung ating mga videos later in case po you miss some parts of our session this afternoon. Hold on lang po while we set up our PowerPoint for introducing this session. Okay, our speaker is already on deck, so let us start by introducing the first session for this program. The first session will be about the online classroom, its structure, content, technologies, and contextual possibilities and limitations. As educators and researchers need to be informed of the nature and possibilities of the emerging online classroom in order to take advantage of the opportunities it presents for expanding and widening the possibilities of teaching and learning. The objective of this session is to inform our teacher participants on what the online classroom is, its organizational elements and structure, as well as its contents. Our expected learning outcomes for this afternoon is to develop a deeper understanding of the nature, elements, and characteristics of the online classroom, and to understand and appreciate the possibilities and applications of virtual scenarios as employed or integrated in the distance learning. Our assessment for session 1. For proficient teachers, you're asked to provide a self-assessment on the use of the online platform, focusing on their structures, contents, strengths, and weaknesses. Pag sinabi po nating proficient teachers, this will be teachers 1, 2, and 3. For the highly proficient teachers naman po, master teachers up. They're asked to provide an evaluation or self-assessments and focusing on addressing perceived weaknesses and limitations, suggesting strategies for improvement. Okay, so yan po yung ating gagawin for the task. After the lecture of our speaker for this afternoon, Professor Joseph Porfirio Andaya, who is a graduate of the Ateneo de Manila University, a retired college professor, a cooperative officer, a seasoned researcher, lecturer, trainer, and seminar resource person in the fields of sociology, anthropology, economics, political science, disaster risk reduction and management, business continuity planning, and cooperative theory and practice. He retired from teaching early in 2016 and has published various peer-reviewed articles, with some of these presented in national and international conferences at leading Philippine universities, particularly the University of the Philippines, the Ateneo de Manila University, the De La Salle University, Silliman University, and the Visayas State University, as well as in Wat Chu Chalamprikit University in Thailand, in the Shandong Yinka University in Jinan City in China, where he holds the title of Distinguished Professor. Mr. Andaya is a certified business continuity professional affiliated with the New York-based Disaster Recovery Institute International. He's currently the Director of Research Development and Publications Center of the Philippine College of Criminology in Manila. Ladies and gentlemen, dear teachers, let's welcome our speaker for this afternoon. Sir Jopo, good afternoon po.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ma'am Ria. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I coming across loud and clear?
Yes po. Good audio.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the first session, the introductory session of this webinar series on online teaching. This session is actually something which we mean to spark some kind of interest in online teaching and the future that it holds for us in our education institutions. So much of the material that will be discussed here will be explored further and in deeper manner in the succeeding this webinar. So this is meant to provoke your ideas, your thoughts, no, your reactions, and your reflective minds, and to prepare you for the coming seminars in tomorrow's and the next day's session. Okay, so let me share my slides so that we can go right ahead into this introductory module. Okay, can everybody see my slides?
Visible siya, sir.
Okay, thank you. So let me start sharing. So this module is entitled The Online Classroom, Structure, Content, Technologies, and Contextual Possibilities, and as well as its limitations. Let me start with a question. No? Today, no, that we are hearing and receiving orders from the Department of Education for basic education and the Commission on Higher Education for HEIs on the return to face-to-face learning or in-person learning. The question is the online classroom still relevant? We are now in the endemic, as they say, which means that COVID-19 has, integrated itself into our systems. And although it does not mean the end of the pandemic, many people seem to mistake the term endemic to mean the end of the pandemic, which is far from it actually. The term endemic means that the virus has already planted itself into our natures, just like the typical influenza. It is here to stay, but it is in control. And we have beaten it, not in the sense that we have driven it away, but in the sense that it has become part of our ordinary cycle of seasonal diseases, seasonal infections. In this endemic, is the online classroom still relevant? And in the light of recent pronouncements that we are now going back to the brick and mortar classrooms, physical classroom, is online learning still relevant for us? That's the question which will be our guiding framework in this series of seminars. We, of course, in i.LEAD believe that it is in view with the continuing relevance. And of course, the reason that comes foremost to mind is because currently there are 6 new COVID-19 variants threatening the post-Wuhan world. Remember the Wuhan variant, the very first one that came in and dominated the entire planet. Currently, starting last October, there are 6 new variants and that exploded and caused quite a stir around the globe. You remember this the situation, right? China locks down part of Wuhan after first COVID case emerged. We are tempted to think that this was, when was this? 2020? January 2020? Or February 2020, when the first cases broke out. It was February when the first cases spread to the Philippines. And it was March 2020 when we had our first of a series of lockdowns, and hard lockdowns, we call it. And well, we might tend to think that this news pertained to that time. But if we look very closely, I intentionally hid some parts of it because you might be surprised to learn that this news was just in October. of this year. No? So look at this date here. This was released October 27, 2022, just just over a month ago. In fact, di ba? Katatapos lang ng November. And there is again a new lockdown in China, no? In part of Wuhan, 3 years after the first COVID case emerged. No? And this meant locking down more than 800,000 people in that city. In short, COVID is not yet done with us. No? It is not yet done with us. Look at this other piece of news. No? You see here the cases per day in Singapore. Okay, Singapore. Now look at this flat line here, no? From February 15, 2020 to around September 13, 2021. COVID has largely died down already, no? Wala nang mga cases usually, no? May maliit lang na bump from April 19, 2020 to August 25, 2020. But that is a very, very, very small bump. No? And one would think na that we won already. No? Singapore has beaten COVID. But look at this rise over here. No? That was on February 22 of this year when 26,000 cases hit Singapore. In that week, including February 2022, the daily average of cases was 18,471. This was early this year. That second, or rather third bump there would be just 2 months ago, October 18, 2022. So just 2 months ago, Singapore was hitting 8,506 COVID cases per day. No? Araw-araw po yan. No? And on October 18, it peaked to 11,934. The third rise over there was, when was that? No? That was November 1, no? The beginning of last month, when the 7-day moving average in Singapore was 5,320 cases. So what this means is that COVID has not yet run its course. No? It's still spiking every now and then, even after this flat line in 2020. Now, this is the Germany case, no? The German experience. Again, we have a very, very low line of cases here from February 15, 2020 to around November 3, 2021, last year. But starting January 8, 2022, no? that is this year already, cases began to spike up again. No? And it hit a high on March 24 with, imagine that, 305,592 cases on that single day alone. So sa isang araw, pumalo ng 305,592 COVID cases ang Germany. In that week, the 7-day moving average was 227,512 per day. Okay? Bawat araw po yan, 227,512. The lower but second peak right there was measured last July of this year, when on that day, sa isang araw lang, pumalo ng 160,691 COVID cases sa Germany. And the last peak noted was last October 6. So ngayong October lang po. No? When on that day, October 6, 174,112 people got sick in Germany. That week, the moving average was 105,450 cases per day. Okay? So, sasabihin natin siguro, malayo ang Germany, but Singapore is very close to us. And we have hundreds of people arriving from Singapore every day in the Philippines. And the case nowadays, right now in the Philippines, is that there are 81 cases last November of the new ZV variant COVID. So in November, they report that there are 81 cases of the newest variant in the Philippines. The problem with that news is that they told us that they were in 2 regions, but the DOH does not want to tell us where these regions are. It may be in our region, NCR. It may be in CAR, Cordilleras. It may be in Region 1 or even Region 12. We do not know. Because the DOH doesn't want us to know where the 81 cases are. Now, there are no news yet on how many of us are hit with this new virus right now. But last week, they reported some 2,000 cases of new COVID patients here in the NCR. And we are still afraid, therefore. Now, what is the lesson here? The lesson is that COVID is still here. And that definitely will make us think twice about abandoning what we have learned during the COVID years. Mainly online learning or online education. We must be resilient in the sense that whenever it hits again, whenever it surges again, we are prepared, ready to shift to new forms of learning. Resilience is what we need to learn right now. And that is not only bouncing back from a disruption, it is bouncing back better from certain disruptions. Okay? Now, even if there is no COVID, even if there is no resurgence, even if there is no new variants coming in, people agree that digital transformation, which we learned very well during the COVID years, is still the best strategy in teaching and learning for educational continuity when disruptions happen. Kapag may mga disruptions na nangyayari, pag may pagkatigil ng ating deliveries, ng ating education services, the best way to continue delivering these services is still the online modality. And so we cannot let go of our advances. We cannot let go of our improvements in this area of teaching and learning. So COVID or no COVID, there are things that cannot abandon right now. Okay? COVID has changed the educational landscape so much. We have transformed ourselves digitally in various ways, in many ways, that it would be difficult for us to go back to where we were originally in terms of our educational delivery systems before the COVID pandemic came and hit us unexpectedly. Okay? And of course, many institutions have also learned that online works. The digital educational model has also found new adherents, new followers among young, upwardly mobile generations, and maybe an attractive option for some schools, particularly those leaning towards augmented realities, virtual realities, and gamification platforms for their educational deliveries. At any rate, let me tell you something about my school, the Philippine College of Criminology, which shifted to online modalities early on in the pandemic. When the pandemic hit in 2020, the school immediately studied ways and means by which continuity can be exercised. And they designed certain patterns of deliveries based largely on Google Classroom. This enabled them not to lose a great deal of enrollment. In fact, in the first year of the COVID pandemic in 2020, the population of the Philippine College of Criminology tripled. Yes? Is there a problem? Hello? Or medyo
Na-unmute lang, sir. Na-unmute lang niya.
Yeah. I was saying that even during the first year of the pandemic, when many schools were losing enrollment and many schools were closing because they couldn't find students, the Philippine College of Criminology was able to triple its enrollment because of its adoption of new technologies for delivering education. And just this year, when the CHED issued Memorandum Order number 16, series of 2022, which advised higher education institutions that by next year, no fully online deliveries will be allowed except for those schools approved by the CHED. When we received CHED Memorandum Order number 16, we immediately drafted letters requesting for the continuation of our full online facilities. Why? We saw that it was effective, we saw that it worked, and primarily because if we move to full to face-to-face learning, students won't be able to be accommodated in the facilities of the College of Criminology. And so we decided to push through with online platforms, no? Even with the CHED Memorandum Order. As our president says, we will never go back to full face-to-face learning, particularly since the school is also moving towards augmented reality deliveries, virtual reality platforms, and games, no, in its delivery systems. Okay, no? So what is the online classroom? No, basically, alam na natin ito. We have been here before, but let us come up with some, definitions of what it is. No? The online classroom is defined as a formal. It's a formal, no? meaning it's bound by official rules, pronouncements, regulations, no, legal provisions, just like school policies and school pronouncements that incorporates synchronous, notice the conjunction, and or asynchronous learning opportunities for language learners to actively interact with fellow learners. So there is asynchronous or an asynchronous learning, and there is also the combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning in the online classroom. Secondly, the online classroom is not a setting itself, it's not a structure itself, but an environment. Some educators see it as an ecology, a kind of a system created through the use of an LMS that allows students and teachers to connect either synchronously in real time with teacher and students meeting at the same time, or asynchronously with interaction between teacher and students occurring intermittently. So hindi continuation oras, no, with a time delay. And teacher and students are generally separated by location. So an online classroom can be defined as a setting connected by the internet, or it may be seen as a campus in itself, diba? A virtual campus where students and teachers interact through computer-mediated communications or the internet. Other definitions say that the online classroom is a non-traditional classroom in which learners and instructors are not in physical closeness or proximity with each other. And the online class can be conducted, again, synchronously or asynchronously. And the course is managed and communications conducted through various electronic methods. No? It is a classroom that has no face-to-face component, since even if we see each other on video, we do not actually see the actual face in front of us. Now, what we have is a face to screen to face communication. No? So there is an intermediate barrier that facilitates both the communication, but impedes it also. So the computer screen, both in front of the teacher and in front of the student, acts to facilitate the communication, yet it also acts to bar or to impede communication. So the computer facilitates and yet restricts communication. It is conducted using a combination of CMC and DC applications. CMC is computer-mediated communications, and DC applications will refer to your digital communication applications. Okay, so basically, the online classroom therefore is a virtual space, no? Some kind of meaningful transformation has been done to the term virtual. Right? Before before COVID, virtual meant mostly, okay, or almost the thing. No? So when we say we are virtually there, what we meant was that we were mostly there but not yet there, di ba? And ang ibig sabihin ng virtual mode, you know, it's a virtual image. Pag sinabi natin, it means that the thing is there but not totally there, no? Ngayon, ang ibig sabihin ng virtual, electronic, di ba? Okay? So it's a space that is real only because electricity and physics enable it to be there. Okay? So it's a reality that is electronically created. No? It's a reality that is made up of, of, of bits and bytes and data. No? And even though we see it to be real and we feel it to be real, it's not somehow totally real. No? Unlike the brick and mortar classrooms that we are accustomed to have. No? Okay, so like physical classrooms, however, the online classroom has human communication in that students and teachers interact in real time. They are also synchronous, meaning in real time we interact with each other and they happen live. And the important thing is that they make use of pre-designed learning materials, no? Which is usually what we do in physical classrooms, although the pre-designed learning materials in online classrooms are made with much more meticulousness than before. And they are made also electronically and digitally presented. Last one is the virtual classrooms are scalable to accommodate a larger number of students, no? Which means that in the physical classrooms that we had before, we generally limited our audience, our class to 50 students in all. No? When we added some students, you had to have the permission of the teacher. No? One, because a larger population can command a larger physical attention from the instructor, and a larger class would have to mean, you know, jump packing 50 plus students into the same dimensions of the physical classroom, and that would never happen. In virtual classrooms, however, in the online classroom, you can have a virtual class of 100, 150, or even 200 students. No? What we are using right now, for example, no, this Zoom webinar is a virtual classroom. It's an online classroom with how many? With 159 students. No? With 160 na ngayon, no? 159 kanina, naging 160 students. No? Last week, we had a virtual classroom, we had an online classroom in educational management webinar with 350 plus students. And so the scalability of virtual classrooms is perhaps limited only by connectivities and the strength of internet connections, the broadband and the bandwidth that we are using. No? And we wouldn't have the problem, therefore, of making everybody fit into a single hall or a single room or a single auditorium for that matter. No? So kahit ilan, no? Kaya. Yung klase ko last year, for example, in research, no? Sanay ako na nagtuturo sa physical classroom na merong 50 no? 50 students or less ang laman. No? But in my research classes last year, we even had 90 to 100 students in a class. And we could easily accommodate all of that in a single online environment. No? Pero dahil medyo may problema pa rin sa monitoring, evaluation, no? Checking ng output, yung 300, 400 plus, 400 students namin noon, pinati-hati pa rin namin sila sa 4 na classrooms. No? Although pwede sana na mag-fit sila lahat sa isang online classroom, yung buong 300 or 400 students. No? Okay, so what are the characteristics that distinguish online courses from face-to-face courses? No? First, there is a great shift in faculty role. No? And this is not something to be belittled. No? Before, in physical classrooms, teachers usually delivered material in front of the class. They usually explained things from their point of view, and the direction of delivery was typically one way, from the teacher to the students. In online classrooms, that role of the teacher shifted. No longer are we merely purveyors of material. No longer are we merely explainers of material. The online classroom created situations where students began to take the initiative in material recovery, materials development, materials learning, materials completion, etc. And the faculty became a different type of faculty, no longer explainers, describers, deliverers of material, but more of mentors, coaches. No? They create certain content in the online course, they deliver the content, but then the learning of the content was largely placed on the shoulders of students. No? And the teacher was, was merely curating already the online learning experiences and facilitating the interactions of students. Okay? So, napansin natin na nung unang panahon ng online classroom, dito tayo nahirapan. No? Because what we assumed before was that the online classroom was merely delivering the lectures in a different setting. So sabi natin noon, parang mag-lecture ka din sa klase, kaya lang online na. No? And that was one big misconception that made us have a very difficult time running our digital classrooms, running our online classrooms. No? What we thought was that it was maybe a shift in modality when it was also a shift in pedagogy, in teaching strategies, in teaching designs. No? And the more we went into the COVID phases, the more we also learned these things. No? Na ang online learning pala, ang online classroom, hindi lang pagbabago ng modality ng teaching, kundi pagbabago din ng pedagogy ng pagtuturo. No? And once we learned that, it became fun. Yeah? It became easy. It became exciting. And it became much more facilitated. Now, we are more mentors. We are more coaches. We are more creators of content. We are more curators of learning and facilitators of the learning of our students. No? So, nagbago yung ating mga papel. A second characteristic is that we had what we call now asynchronous interactions. No? Dati, meron din tayong asynchronous interactions. No? At ano yung mga yon? Yung mga assignment. No? Yung mga assignment. So, noon, nung wala pang COVID, pagkatapos ng klase natin, nagbibigay tayo ng assignment sa mga estudyante na gagawin nila sa bahay. No? yun talaga yung asynchronous part ng ating physical classroom. No? Ngayon, noong nag-shift tayo sa online classroom, akala natin yun pa rin. No? Akala natin na yung asynchronous part ng pagtuturo online ay pagbibigay pa rin ng assignment. Yun yung una. No? Kaya tayo nahirapan din. No? Nagtatanong tayo, ano na kaya ang nangyayari sa ating mga estudyante? No? Ginagawa kaya nila yung kanilang assignment? No? Kasi hindi mo na sila nakikita. No? Magsisynchronous ka ng isang oras sa isang linggo. Pagkatapos mag-a-asynchronous ka ng 2 oras para makumpleto mo yung 3 oras sa isang linggo. No? At doon sa 2 oras na asynchronous, hindi mo alam kung ano yung nangyayari sa mga estudyante mo hanggang makikita mo na naman sila sa susunod na synchronous lesson at kukumustahin mo na. Di ba? Bakit ganun? Kasi yun ang pagkakaalam natin ng simula kung ano ang asynchronous. Pero habang tumatagal, no, nakita natin no, at nabuksan ang isip natin na ang asynchronous interactions ay hindi lang pala limited sa pagbibigay ng assignment. No? Biglang nabuksan yung ating mga isip at mga mata na ang asynchronous content ng isang online class ay isang napakayaman at napakamabungang karanasan para sa teacher at sa estudyante. Because asynchronous interactions involve more than assignments, interaction to conduct consultancies, no? Following up on material, doing chats on Messenger or on Google Classroom or in your LMS, no? Kumustahan even to the latest of the nights, no? Okay? So nalaman natin na ang asynchronous interaction pala hindi lang gagawa sila ng assignment para i-check natin sa susunod na pagkikita, hindi, no? We learned that even when we are not conducting actual classes, we can follow up on our students using online modalities. We can check how they are doing. We can we can converse with them through electronic ways. No, we can interact with them in other ways than synchronous lessons. No, so once we opened our eyes and our minds to the possibility, naging mas mayaman tuloy ang online courses. No? A third characteristic is that there is more active learning among students. No? Dati, yung pag-aral ng mga estudyante, nakalimit doon sa pagpasok nila sa klase at sa assignment na gagawin nila pagkatapos ng klase. No? With online classrooms, students suddenly realized that they had a bigger burden, that they had a larger share of the teaching and learning process. No? And online assignments, online materials had the effect of encouraging learners to be more active, to do more thinking, to do more writing, to do more reflecting and interacting with peers, to improve their engagement in learning, and to take on more responsibility. No? There are many students who were not able to make this transition. No? Why? Because when they moved to online learning, their mentality of physical learning was carried along with them. No? Akala nila yung online learning ay physical learning na dinala sa laptop, na dinala sa computer. At dun sila nahirapan. No? But when they began to realize that online learning meant, doing the same things that they were doing with their phones, no, with their gadgets, no, researching, googling, no, doing TikTok, no, doing videos, no, creating material, writing content, no, commenting on their Facebook accounts. Nung nalaman nila na yung online learning involves not only memorizing material, but creating content, researching online, at yung paggawa ng mga ito ay napaka-similar sa pagko-comment sa Facebook post, no? Yung paggawa ng assignment ay hindi mo dapat tingnan bilang isang napaka-tedious na trabaho, kundi nag-isip ka sa isang paraan na disiplinado para makapag-comment ka ng maayos sa isang post. No? then they began to enjoy it. No? They began to loosen up. They began to see online learning as exciting because not only are they freed from the constraints of the teacher's demands, they are now free to construct their own ways of learning, free to determine what kind of material they will use to create their output and so on. No? So ito yung naging isang magandang effect ng isang online course. No? And you have greater flexibility. Ang dami mong pwedeng gamitin gadgets, ang dami mong pwedeng gamitin resources, ang dami mong pwedeng gamitin virtual space, no? Ang dami mong pwedeng paggawa sa mga estudyante, no? Etc. No? So it became more fun. It became more exciting, mainly because students have greater flexibility in designing their own outputs. Okay, so we also have in online learning ongoing assessment. No? Halimbawa, we can now monitor the progress of our students day by day instead of having only weekly quizzes or even periodic quizzes before or unit quizzes. Ngayon, we can follow them up. We can check their progress even on a day-to-day basis. We can talk to them. We can chat with them. We can make kumusta of how they are, and we can evaluate their difficulties, their progress, their level of knowledge, their level of development, even on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so the assessment is an ongoing assessment. At saka, hindi na kagaya noon na may mga surprise quiz tayo, etc. Di ba? So, assessment is also now fun, interactive, exciting, and flexible. What are the features of the online classroom? We have video conferencing, we have digital whiteboards, no? And digital whiteboards are fun to make, no? Yung tinatawag natin jump boards of whiteboards sa video classroom, no? Where students would write their comments, students would react using postcards and stick-ons and paste them on the whiteboard, right? You have instant messaging. Students during learning time, for example, can chat you can answer back. Other people can react to the chat, no, the comments, etc. And all of it is being done instantly. No? Hindi kagaya noon na pinipilit mong mag-recite yung mga bata, no? Students somehow find it easier to ask questions or to raise issues and ideas and comments on whiteboards and chat group chats, rather than in the traditional classroom. No? And you can also control participation. No? You have your mute, you have your unmute, you have your closed video, you have your ways and means by which you could control the delivery of your material. Like for example, if you design the material that is good for next week, you can create it now, but you can open it next week. You can program when the student can look at the material. You can program up to what day the student can submit the output. You can open a quiz at a particular time and day, and you can close the quiz on a particular time and day also. No, all the time designing it as you would design an online class structure. Right? Next, you have subchats and breakout rooms if you want to have group work. Yeah? Dati yung group work, physical group work. Ngayon, you can have subchats, you can have breakout rooms, no? Especially if you're using Zoom, no? As a platform. And you can record your lectures. No? You can record your interaction, you can record your lecture, you can record your demonstrations so that you will not have to do everything again in the next classes. And so that your students can have something to view for their review. Diba? Pag nirecord mo yung lecture mo at linagay mo dun sa folder ng materials ng mga bata, then when the students will review for their major quiz, they can watch the video again. No? And it's as if you are conducting your lecture in front of them once again. Okay, pinapanood na nila yung video ng lecture mo. Okay? And you won't have to worry about, a third parties crashing into your lecture or material because uh, the LMSs that we have right now, Google Classroom, for example, ensures that there is an end-to-end encryption, which means that when you send material to your students, no third party can access the material. No? Parang point-to-point ito, no? Kung ano yung sinend mo sa mga estudyante mo, yung mga estudyante mo lang ang makakatanggap at hindi pwedeng silipin ng third party o ibang klaseng mga uh, mga tao, no? At kung ano yung isend nila sa iyo na output, ikaw din lang yung makakatanggap at makakabasa. Hindi yan mababasa ng ibang teacher, no? Unless pinapi-furnish nila siya, no? But if they send the assignments to you, no chance na mababasa yan ng principal o head teacher o department head, ikaw lang yung makakatanggap. No? So parang point-to-point ang deliveries ng material and output. Okay? There are many terms being bandied today, no? Kalat, lumilipad yung mga terms at kung minsan hindi na natin maintindihan kung ano ang kanilang ibig sabihin, no? We have moved from face-to-face classrooms to fully online classrooms during the course of 2.5 years, running 3 years, right? From face-to-face to remote to hybrid to hybrid online courses. Okay? So, kung minsan hindi na nga natin alam kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng mga ito, diba? No? So, klaruhin natin, no? Para hindi tayo iba-iba yung mga naiisip sa pagtingin sa mga terms na ganito, no? Yung face-to-face, syempre, yung kaharap ng estudyante, diba? You are in front of the students. They are in front of you and you have physical, real-time contact with each other. Remote classrooms, on the other hand, or remote learning, refers to learning that where the students and the teacher are not physically in the same area, in the same place. No? Now, remote classroom can happen through various ways. Okay? When we moved to remote learning, for example, we were not using computers at all. Right? The very first remote learnings that were done were correspondence courses. Right? So, pinapadala sa atin yung mga material through mail. Tinasagot natin yung mga questions also. At ipinapadala natin yung ating mga sagot by mail din, diba? Koryo, no? So, yan yung unang remote learning noon, no? Pagkatapos, nagkaroon ng development ng mga radio conferencing or video conferencing. Pero yung mga unang video conferencing noon, point-to-point ang tawag natin. So, ibig sabihin, yung mga estudyante, mag-gather sila sa isang kwarto, tapos yung teacher, mag-online sa isang kwarto, tapos magkakaroon ng connection ng dalawang kwarto niyan. No? So, yung teacher nasa Manila, yung mga estudyante nasa Ilocos, pero nasa isang lugar sila, iisang medium yung kanilang ginagamit. Then later on, nagbago rin yan. No? Nagkaroon ng breakthrough sa technology by the 2000s. Pwede nang hindi point-to-point. Pwede nang bawat isang estudyante may kanya-kanyang gadget na. No? So, yun ang talagang pag-explode ng tinatawag nating virtual learning. Yan, no? So remote learning passed through certain phases also. From correspondence learning to computer-mediated learning. No? Ano naman itong hybrid na ito? No? Yung hybrid na yan ay isang Australian term, no? Hybrid learning. Sa atin, ang tawag natin sa hybrid learning ay blended learning. Okay, so yung hybrid learning at blended learning, pareho ang ibig sabihin niyan, no? Sa United States, sa Pilipinas, no, ang tawag natin blended. Sa Australia, sa Canada, sa UK, ang tawag nila hybrid. Ano tong hybrid or blended na ito? No? Ito yung paraan na meron kang synchronous face-to-face, meron kang synchronous na computer-mediated learning at meron kang in-person learning. Magka-combine yan. No? However, the hybrid or blended learning modality is a consecutive modality. Ano ibig sabihin ng isang consecutive modality? Mauuna yung isa. No? So, either mauuna yung asynchronous na bahagi, no, ng ating learning process at susunod yung synchronous na learning process, no? Or mauuna yung face-to-face tapos susundan mo ng online learning. Halimbawa, no? Magkaklase ka sa isang physical classroom. Kaharap mo yung mga estudyante. No? And then, you will give them an assignment which they will do online. Diba? So, nauna yung face-to-face mo, pagkatapos, sumunod yung online mo. So, consecutive siya. No? Hindi siya sabay na nangyayari. Okay? So, yan ang blended learning. Or, mauuna yung online assignment mo, mauuna yung online learning, tapos saka mo susundan ng face-to-face or in-person learning. Yeah. So, what does blended and hybrid or hybrid learning? It is a combination of face-to-face and online learning, but they are done consecutively. Okay, they are done consecutively. Ano naman ang high flex? No? Ano naman high flex? Ang high flex, maraming variations yan. No? Kombinasyon yan ng hybrid, yung high, ibig sabihin hybrid, or blended, di ba? Pareho ang ibig sabihin ng hybrid at blended. So, high for hybrid or blended, and flex for flexible learning. No? So, yung hybrid, alam na natin, di ba? May online at on-site na modality. Ano naman yung flexible na hinalo nila dyan? No? Yung flexible is from the point of view of the students. Ibig sabihin, parang flexi time. Alam mo ba yung flexi time? Flexible time? Kung minsan, papasok ka ng 7 to 7, 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 p.m. So, 7 to 3 yung pasok mo. Or, pwede kang pumasok ng 9 to 5. Diba? Which is also 8 hours. Diba? So, yung isa naman, papasok ng 3 to 11. Yeah, 8 hours din. So, pwede mong piliin kung ano yung pasukan mo. Okay? So, in education, ang flexible learning ay yung estudyante ang mamimili kung papasukan mo yung on-site or yung online. Okay? So, hybrid siya. Ibig sabihin, kombinasyon ng online at on-site. Pero flexible din siya kasi pwedeng pumili yung mga estudyante kung ano yung papasukan nila. Yan ang high flex. Okay? Yung fully online naman ay, of course, no? Fully online. Walang face-to-face. Okay? So yan ang evolution ng online classroom mula nung nag-face-to-face tayo hanggang sa ngayon, no? Na fully online at babalik na tayo sa face-to-face. Okay. So, blended or hybrid learning is a mix of on-campus or face-to-face learning and online activities. Okay? Both synchronous and asynchronous learning were done consecutively. Diba? With online interaction sometimes seen as supplemental to face-to-face experience. Yung high flex developed by Brian Beatty of San Francisco State University is a combination of hybrid and flexible. So alam na natin yung hybrid. Yung flexible, students may choose whether or not to attend face-to-face sessions. No? Ito yung diferensya niya sa hybrid. Kasi yung hybrid, walang choice ang estudyante. Kailangan niyang pumasok sa online, kailangan din niyang pumasok sa face-to-face. Sa HiFlex, may option yung estudyante. So the specific characteristic here is that the learners have full control of what modality they want, no? And they want to attend. Yung third na classification ay yung multi-access, no? Introduced by Valerie Irvin of the University of Victoria. No? So, yung estudyante has a choice of what to attend. Okay? There are 4 levels of access open to the student. One is face-to-face. Second is synchronous but online. Third is asynchronous but online. And the fourth is open access to materials. Okay? Yung open access ay sa materials lang, hindi sa instruction, no? Hindi sa trabaho ng teacher. So, pipili yung estudyante, no? Kung alin dyan o lahat yan ay kakayanin niya. No? So, yung estudyante, pwede niyang piliin lahat yan. Pwede siyang mag face-to-face at mag-synchronous online and attend asynchronous online sessions and have open access to materials. But the students can also choose any combination of the 4. So that is the beauty of the multi-access, because you are giving the student a self-paced program. So the student can determine which of those would be fit for him or for her. No? And he would be the one to choose what type of program he would like to enroll in. No? There is a 4th type, no? Called the blended synchronous or the synchronous hybrid, developed by Matt Bauer of the University of Australia. No? So how do they define blended synchronous, or synchronous hybrid? They say that it's learning and teaching where remote students participate in face-to-face classes by means of rich media synchronous technologies such as video conferencing, webcam, or visual words. Okay, so pure online siya. No? Pure online siya, pero pure synchronous din siya. Okay? Wala siyang asynchronous. Wala siyang asynchronous. No? So, ang klase sa blended synchronous, no, ay online at synchronous. Okay? So, yun ang ibig ko sabihin. Pero synchronous. Okay, so those are the types of modalities that that teachers, no, or universities or schools can develop. No? Here is an example of blended synchronous modality adopted by Clemson University. Okay, so ang mangyayari, the students are divided into 3 groups. So yung enrollment mo sa klase, ihahatiin mo sa 3 grupo. Group A, Group B, and Group C. Now, Group C students are those who will prefer online classes only. They have chosen not to attend on-site classes. Okay? So, only Group A and Group B will be attending face-to-face classes. But in session 1, Group A will be on-site, while in session 2, they will be attending online. Okay? The students in Group B, meanwhile, will attend online in session 1, and they will attend on-site in session 2. Okay? So what will the teacher see? What will the teacher see? In the first session, the teacher will see face-to-face students, but at the same time, she will be talking to 2 online groups. Diba? So naglaklase siya may mga on-site students siyang nakikita sa loob ng klase, pero may dalawang grupo ng estudyante sa loob ng klase na online. Okay, so sabay niyang linelecturan yung mga on-site at yung dalawang grupong naka-online. Sa susunod na session, yung naka-on-site noon, mag-o-online na sila. At yung group B na naka-online noon, mag-o-on-site na sila. So nagpalit sila, no, ng group A. Pero yung group C, online pa din. Kasi ayaw nilang mag-on-site. Okay, so at any session, at any given session, the teacher is talking to one group who is on-site, and yet those online groups can also listen to her and participate in the class. Okay, so that's how a blended synchronous class is conducted in Clemson University in the States. Okay, so the problem really is after we have designed, or after we have formulated our modalities. Remember, modality is the delivery aspect. It is the place and time aspect. No? Whether the students are on site or online, or half of them are on site or online, or whether we do online first and then on site, that is the modality. No? It refers to the place and time of the interaction. Pedagogy, on the other hand, is different from modality. No? Pedagogy will now refer to our teaching strategies. Okay. Once we have decided our modalities, then we can design our pedagogies. Okay. And the pedagogies that we will have to design should address all the principles of education that we have learned before. Okay? It doesn't mean that when we shift to online modalities, we forget the principles of teaching, no, that we learned when we earned our degrees, no, in education. And then pa rin sila, no? The challenge is how to design pedagogical strategies that will enable us to fulfill and adhere to those principles. Okay? Now, one of the most popular pedagogical strategies adopted in online classes is the flipped classroom delivery mode. Okay? The flipped classroom is where the students are assigned material, no? And they learn the material at home, they learn the material online, and in on-site classes, the teacher will now have to process the material. Then it is now the students who will be delivering their learning of the content of the material. So it's really what it means, no? If you flip a classroom, then it is now the students who become teachers, and the teacher who will now be the student. No? But in a different sense, no? When we say flipped classroom, the students will now deliver the material that they have read, that they have digested, that they have organized, and that they have learned while they were in their asynchronous times. And then when the synchronous time comes, it is now the students who are delivering what they have learned. And the teacher will now be just asking questions, checking, processing, etc. Okay? So face-to-face for activities that deepen student understanding after the material has already been ingested by the students. Example, class discussions on higher order thinking, group projects, focused instruction to address misconceptions, and others. No? We have also what is known as the enriched virtual. No? What is the enriched virtual? You do your lectures online, you do your classes online. No? But when students have problems, just like counterproductive learning habits, socio-emotional difficulties, family problems, problems problems regarding their boyfriends, no, that impede their learning capabilities or other learning challenges, no, then you meet face to face to address this. Okay, so asynchronous ka, asynchronous online ka sa pagtuturo, pero kapag may problema yung mga estudyante, imbitahin mo sila on-site o face-to-face. At doon sa face-to-face mo pag-usapan yung kanilang mga problema, yung kanilang mga challenges, yung kanilang mga difficulties, no? Yung kanilang mga concerns. Okay? So you use the face-to-face to address these obstacles. A third pattern is a la carte na tinatawag, no? A la carte pedagogy. Ito yung madalas na ginagamit ngayon sa mga HEIs, sa mga higher learning institutions, no? Higher education institutions. Laboratories and major courses are done face-to-face. Pero yung mga general education courses, yung mga hindi major, yung mga walang laboratory, online lahat yan. No? The principle is that for major courses and for laboratory courses or PE courses, face-to-face instruction would be able to give much more effective learning than online instruction. Okay, but for general education courses, which do not need laboratories, no face-to-face instruction, direct learning, etc., then online courses would be preferable. Yan ang tinatawag na a la carte. And the last one is individual rotation. So rotation meaning during this week, one half of the entire population will be on site, the other half will be online. And then the following week, they will exchange places. No? The half that had been online the previous week will now be on site, and that half of the population that was on site last week will now be online. So ganun, no? Nagro-rotate sila kung sino yung online at kung sino yung on site. Okay? Now, a survey of students on what kind of instructional practices they like in online classes, no, in the online classroom, resulted in this data. No, so for students in the second year and in the fourth year, and instructors of second year and fourth year students, ito yung mga kanilang mga answers. No? So, halimbawa, no, for live sessions, for asking questions and participating in discussions, gustong-gusto yan ng mga second years at fourth year students. No? At lagi rin ginagawa yan ng mga instructors. No? Real world examples, 64% of second year students and 67% of fourth year students prefer this kind of practice. But instructors do not really use them. Only 49% of instructors and 53% of four-year instructors are able to use real-world examples. For recorded lectures, this is preferred by 54% of second-year students and 69% of fourth-year students, while being used only by 55% of second-year of two-year instructors and 58% of two-year instructors. Other physical instructional practices done online is live lectures by the instructor with students watching, videos from external sources, personal messages from the instructor, assignments having you express what you had learned, breaking course activities up into shorter pieces, and group projects and breakout groups are not really preferred by both students and instructors. So 25% of 37% lang ng mga students ang may gusto ng group projects pag online. No? And 22% and 31% lang ng mga instructors ang gumagawa nito, no? Online. Okay? So, yun ang instructional practices. But what students really prefer is a combination, no, of these practices. Look at this data. No? So, for 35% of the students, they prefer instructional practices that are very much varied. No? So tignan mo on the vertical axis is the number of instructional practices done by instructors. No? And on the horizontal axis would be the percent of students who are satisfied, no? And very satisfied with these practices. Take note, no, that if instructors only use up to 2 instructional practices, lecture at assignment lang siguro ito, no? Only 8% of the students are very satisfied, and only 35% are somewhat satisfied. But if the instructors vary their techniques, no, and use different kinds of methods, 3 to 5 methods, so 3 to 5 practices, then 19% are very satisfied, and an additional 42% are somewhat satisfied. But if instructors vary their techniques up to 6 to 8 practices, no, very varied, no, very rich, no, yung kanilang employment ng practices, then 35% of the students will be very satisfied, while an additional 39% will be somewhat satisfied. So the lesson here is that the more techniques that we use in online classes, no, the more practices that we combine dito, no, the more practices that we combine here, the more techniques that we use here, then the more students will be satisfied with our performance. So yung isang practice lang kasi pag lecture ka lang, siyempre nabobore yung mga estudyante, hindi sila masyadong nag-enjoy nasa. Okay? So, by the way, no, we have, if you have any questions, just feel free to write on the chat box so that we can address them. Okay? So, as of now, mga good afternoon pa lang ang nasa chat box, no? Unstable internet connection, etc. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon sa inyo pong lahat. But if you have certain concerns, certain questions, feel free to write in the chat box so that we can address them. Okay? So the very first advantage of the online classroom is, well, high interactivity. No? The online classroom forced us to become very, very inventive in our approaches to activities, to educational activities. And last count, ito yung mga various innovations and practices na ginagawa ng mga estudyante in online classes. No? They have their students do experiential research papers, ethical case studies, oral presentations, they play games, they use social media, they have their students engage in debates, they make their students defend certain propositions, they create discussion pods, they make their students conduct focused reading and writing activities, they have simulations, no? They make their students write reflective journals or play certain roles, no, online. They make group self-assessments as well as group critiques. They make their students write their own portfolios, experiences, personal essays. No? They have panel discussions as well as reflective essays. No? Okay, so yeah. Second advantage is collaborative education. No? This is also where a kind of a complementary activity is best done. No? It is only when the online classroom was widely used that teachers and students suddenly became interested in collaborating not only in the design of activities, but also in the design of lessons themselves. No? It may be because students, young as they are very adept, they are very good, they are very highly skilled in the design of online material. No? At tanggapin natin, no? Tayong mga medyo may edad na ng mga teacher, no? tinatalo tayo ng mga estudyante sa pagdi-design, no, ng content, ng ng material sa online teaching, no. May diferensya kasi ang online lecture at online outline at mga PowerPoint natin sa material at content na ginagawa ng mga estudyante sa kanilang mga YouTube channels, sa kanilang mga blogs, sa kanilang mga vlogs, sa kanilang mga TikTok content, etc. No? At nakikita natin na mas magaganda yung kanilang mga na-create na content kaysa sa napaka-boring na outline natin, sa mga PowerPoints natin na over-decorated, over-designed. No? And let us face it, no? There is much that the student population can teach us in terms of designing content, in terms of creating content. No? And this is where we must allow them to contribute in the learning process. No? Never before has there been a chance for us to collaborate in this manner, where we create and collaborate on the content of the material. Diba? Digital whiteboards, file sharing, virtual meeting applications, chats, no? All of this facilitate collaborative learning. No? And many instructors notice that online environments somehow remove a lot of the students' hesitations and a lot of the students' apprehensions in involving themselves. No? Noong face-to-face learning, students realized that somehow the level of collaboration, if there was any collaboration at all, was very low compared to the level of collaboration in the design of materials when we shifted to online classes. No? Is it because the teachers were more open to the skills of the students in online environments? Is it because in on-site classes, teachers feel the need to dominate, to control, to be the authority in the classroom, whereas in online environments, they have to allow the students to take over in terms of, facilitation, in terms of contribution, because it the students are the ones who have a great deal of facility and expertise, no, in the creation of material. Well, we have to explore this in a formal research, but this is what online classroom has given us, no, a higher level of collaboration with our students in the designing of learning material. And when they do contribute to the designing of the learning material, retention of knowledge is also higher. No? A third, let me just check the chat. No? Greetings pa rin, no? A third advantage is student-focused learning. Okay, so before we were doing this, definitely. No? Before COVID, before online classrooms, we were doing this. But we noticed that during the online phase of education, during the COVID phase of education, many students began to feel that the burden of learning was suddenly shifted upon them. Okay, so they realized that much of the learning that had been on the shoulders of teachers before had now been transferred to their own shoulders. No? At first, this was difficult for the students to accept. At first, they were under pressure. They were, they felt that they had a lot to contend with. They felt that they were overburdened by the heaviness of the material that was being assigned. But in the midst of the COVID pandemic, there was a sea change in terms of adaptation. Students began to harness their capacities in online sourcing. Students began to harness their capabilities in taking advantage of online material in order to make their jobs easier, in order to put across their output and design their output in an easier manner. Today, many and much more of our students have adjusted to the pressures of online education. You see them smiling a lot more nowadays. You see them speaking a lot more nowadays. You see them being able to compartmentalize. You see them learning how to schedule chores. You see them already having adjusted in such a way that they have made their own schedules in the making and completing of the requirements. So what we experienced before was a certain kind of a birthing process, no? Nagkakapan ng mga estudyante ng una, no? Pero ngayon, nakikita mo yung advantage, no? Natuto na silang mag-calendar, natuto na silang mag-schedule, natuto na silang mag-compartmentalize, natuto na silang gamitin yung nalalaman nila sa online para gawing mas maganda at mas makapili yung kanilang output, no? And this is really being observed in the third year of COVID, no? Student-focused learning has become much more a reality. Students have become much more outspoken. Students have become much more expressive. Students have become much more output-oriented than before because of the online classroom. Okay? Now, another advantage is, of course, we can employ a wide variety of media. Videos, audios, presentations, live shares, animations, digital whiteboards, webinars, no? Faculty have also adjusted. Okay. Dati, in the first year of COVID, ano lang meron tayo? PowerPoint. Di ba? Ano lang meron tayo? Konting slides, di ba? Ngayon, you have learned a lot. You have made YouTube channels, you have made Facebook pages, you have made Jamboards, you have combined videos with audios, we have come up with course content that are exciting. So, doon talagang hirap din tayo. No? The adjustment was also very heavy for us. No? But today, we have learned a lot. No? And we have made lives easier by employing online media. Okay. Third is, no, comfortable learning space. Learning online is less mechanical and more literally at home. No? We can lounge on our sofas. No? We can wear comfortable clothes. No? We can break out for a bit of merienda if we get hungry. No? Virtual classrooms ensure that learners are able to interact and chat with classmates and teachers, no? Without the fear of getting noticed while in the physical classroom. No? So habang tinitignan natin yung material, nakikipag-chat yung mga estudyante natin, going over the material themselves, coming up with reactions, comments, etc. And this makes learning much more fun, much more interactive, and much more exciting. Okay? But there are also certain limitations. So ito yung mga persisting pa rin, yung iba dito na nasa natin, pero the first is the screen is much more tiring than an actual book. No? Many of us prefer reading a book than reading the screen. Right? Some say it's because of the radiation. Some say it's because of the light. No? Some say it's because of certain, material that emanates from the screen. But we have that inability. Plus, of course, the distractions of home, social media, makikita ka sumagot sa mga comments at sabi ng mga friends na wala namang relasyon sa lesson, etc. Andyan. Yung isa pa na hanggang ngayon, isang malaking problema natin dito sa Pilipinas is accessibility, connectivity, and shared bandwidth. Now, let us be clear on this, no? To be sure about it, accessibility has improved over the years. Okay, many areas that had been, without connectivities in the first year of the pandemic had begun to receive a lot of assistance and infrastructure development from their own local government units. Okay. Many of the teachers before who did not have access to the internet have now been provided with access. Many schools that did not have online infrastructure now have been provided with internet connectivities, routers, hubs, etc. So accessibility has been addressed largely in the second and third years of the pandemic. Connectivity, therefore, has improved very much. And the study found out that there is even a nearly 160% improvement in connectivity. Okay? We now have up to 50 gigabytes of transfer in fixed modems in the Philippines. No? Kaya pag fixed yung internet mo, pwede ka na makakuha ng mga 50 gigs, no? na speed. No? Pag mobile ka, pwede ka na makakuha ngayon ng up to 12, no? 12 gigs, no? ng speed. At papunta na tayo sa 5G na tinatawag, no? Hindi kagaya noong kasimula ng pandemic na most of us ay nasa 3G at bago-bago pa lang ang 4G noon. No? Pero ngayon, nag-improve na yan. The Philippines definitely is one of the fastest improving nations in terms of accessibility and internet connectivity. The problem that we have in the Philippines is that we are seventh to the last in terms of internet poverty, which means that even as connectivity has increased, bandwidth has expanded, internet speed ay lumakas, hindi pa rin bumababa ang bayad natin sa internet. Okay? So yan ang nananatiling mahal, no? Yung ating load, no? Ang nananatiling mahal. And we have to address that, no? Kasi sayang yung increase in connectivity, sayang yung increase in accessibility, sayang yung bumilis na internet, no? 12 na tayo sa pinakamabilis na internet sa Asia, no? Pero ang problema natin talaga, mahal pa rin ang internet kahit bumilis na siya sa atin. Okay? So that's really our problem. And of course, eto, no, psychologically, we had feeling of isolation, heightened stress, anxiety, and mental ill health. Okay? Associated with staying for long periods online, no? Naalala ko yung mga kaibigan kong mga teacher, no? Okay? Na complain sa heightened stress, anxiety, and mental ill health, no? Pero pag tinanong mo sila kung gaano karami yung mga itinuturo nila, sasabihin nila, nagtuturo sila ngayon ng 3 eskwelahan. No? So, yung isa 24 units, yung isa 6 units, at yung isa 6 units. So, they are teaching a total of 36 units today, no? Which is very easy to do since it's all online, di ba? And there is only an hour of synchronicity in a week. So, 1 hour per week ang synchronous lessons mo, the rest are asynchronous. So you can teach in 3 schools. You can teach 36 or even more units because it's on. At yes, hello. At lagi sinasabi ko sa kanila, nagsistress talaga kayo kasi dami-dami yung tinuturuan, no? Pero yung mga normal na 24 units, things have become much more relaxed for them. Things have become more easy for them, no? Pero nandiyan pa rin yan, no? Limitations in teacher training for the use of online gadgets and online modalities and learning management system. And of course, managing screen time and Zoom fatigue, no? These are the problems. Other limitations is the tendency to focus on the cognitive aspect of learning, no? Tayong mga nasanay sa face-to-face teaching, mostly nagkakaproblema tayo dito. No? We tend to forget that other aspects of learning should include motor skills and affective skills. and we mainly concentrate on what we can impart on the cognitive side. There are times, aside from seminars, ang seminar talagang asahan mo, solo performance talaga yan, unless you have a workshop, which we will do on Sunday. So sa seminars, talagang magso-solo performance yung speaker mo, yung resource speaker mo. Unless, sabi natin, kanina, meron kang workshop. Sa klase, hindi dapat ganito, di ba? Hindi dapat i-monopolize ng teacher yung oras. Kailangan yung mga estudyante, they also should be able to have the time to discuss, to share their experiences, to deliver their output, etc. But ito pa rin yung isang tendency natin, para tayong nagla-live na online selling, di ba? Ito yung ibig sabihin ng online selling type discussions, So sinosolo natin yung screen. And possible lack of control. Kasi kung minsan, napapansin natin, kahit gabi na, nagchat-chat pa rin yung ating mga estudyante, alas 2, nagchat-chat pa rin yung ating mga estudyante, at hindi natin napipigilan sumagot, nawawala tuloy tayo ng panahon para sa ating sarili. And syempre, for certain disciplines, mahirap ang online talaga. History, philosophy, laboratory work, Kaya ang laging mga nagko-complain sa aking mga kaibigan sa online ay yung mga kaibigan kong philosophy professors, yung mga history professors, na gusto nila online, on-site discussions, on-site discourses, on-site deepening of the experiences in philosophy and history. And up to now, tanggapin natin, excuse me, up to now, wala pa rin tayong mga definite na tools and instruments for assessing the quality of our online educational platforms. At yung mga accreditation natin, hanggang online interviews pa lang, hanggang online meetings pa lang. Hindi pa natin talaga nagagawa yung fully instrumented capacity to do accreditation inspections and quality assurance systems for our online delivery platforms. Okay? So, ayun. There are other very serious considerations as well, but we already are starting to manage this. We are already starting to adapt well to them. For teachers, dati, we had the lack, excuse me, we had the lack of essential online qualities. Like, for example, we lack the capability to be actors in front of the screen. We lack the capability to use online gadgets or platforms. We had to let our sons, our apo sometimes, we had to let our grandchildren teach us how to use Zoom, how to use the facilities of Zoom, how to use mute and mute, close video, open video, etc. And we somehow did not know how to be constantly present to our students online. But we managed to get over this, And now we had very minimized problems regarding presence, and we have learned a lot on how to be very, very passive online. Second, technological problems have already been addressed to a certain extent. Equity and accessibility had been problems during the first year of the pandemic, but during the second year and third years of the pandemic, we began to adjust. And now, our computer literacy has grown in bounds. We are one of the most computer literate populations already in the globe. We are the 20th in terms of internet usage. Although, of course, that is an average, since there are many Filipinos who do not yet have internet accessibility, and much of the internet usage is concentrated in urban and semi-urban areas. We have largely addressed technological limitations like crashes. If we with Google, for example, allowing us 15 gigabytes of cloud storage, we have largely addressed crashes, power problems, and connectivity issues as well as other issues. No? For our students, no, there is a particular character of students required for them to be successful in online learning. They must be well organized, self-motivated, with a high degree of time management skills. No? The online classroom may not be appropriate for younger students like those in the elementary. Secondary school age, medyo okay na to, no? We have to address, however, this problem among grade 7 or grade 8, grade 9, and grade 10 students, those in the junior high school. But for the senior high school, they are already very well adept in the use of the technology. Other students in the higher years are independent learners already, and they do not have difficulties anymore assuming responsibilities required by the online paradigm. The problem really for us before was that we did not have time to prepare our students for the online shift. We did not have time to brief them. We did not have time to train them. We did not have time to orient them on the digital transformation of our delivery systems. But the second and third years of the pandemic has given us time for the students and for us to adapt, to these kinds of challenges. And if we make a survey of students nowadays, many of them have already adapted and acquired the kind of mentality, the kind of psychological preparation, the kind of emotional and cognitive levels needed to fare well and to succeed in online systems. The last is, of course, our schools, our school infrastructures, our administrations. Uh, Today, there are still some administrators who look at online programs only as a way to increase revenues. Bakit? Kasi maraming mag-enroll kapag online. Halimbawa, may mga eskwelahan na yung mga estudyante nila galing sa iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas na pwedeng mag-enroll kasi online. And they accepted the students because it meant a greater population, and a greater population meant greater revenues. And so these schools resist going back to on-site. Kapag pinag-on-site kasi sila, they will lose the students. Yung mga taga-ibang lugar, taga-ibang probinsya, syempre, mag-enroll sila sa mga eskwelahan na malapit sa kanila. Because going to Manila, going to Baguio, going to the centers of education will entail some kind of an expense that might be beyond their family's needs. Kakayanin ng kanilang pamilya. And some administrators, therefore, regarded online education as a way to make more money. And if this is the mentality, these administrators are not committed to online programs as a means of providing quality education. They will not have motivations to improve infrastructure, improve learning management systems, develop their faculty into very good online educators and faculty and others. Okay, so these are the limitations of online question. Of course, we have to contend with a very philosophical question. The online classroom provokes important questions on the underlying principles of our educational system today, on questions on ontology, or what is the nature of education really, and what is it all about, on how to determine what education is, how to measure the educational achievement, processes, levels, outputs, etc. Also, they have spurred in us a kind of a question on how ethical educational systems purely based on online learning or blended learning or high flex learning? And to what extent are we pursuing what is good for our students? These issues emerge from our digital transformation, the increasing use of our digital technology. However, uh, these are only peripheral questions. If we have to dig deeper, then maybe we can find answers in the way global education is being shaped by neoliberal technologies, neoliberal ideologies that commodify everything, even culture, learning, teaching, and the very educational process itself. No? So essentially, we have to contend with the deeper question of what is global education if not an integrated world order that makes money out of the educational process. And the challenge of Filipino educators is, of course, to challenge this kind of an educational system that is commercialized and that is geared towards the generation of revenue. Filipino educators must uh, regard, therefore, online learning as an instrument of liberation from these kinds of dominating systems, no? Where education is seen only as a money-making venture rather than as a way to create Filipino students that are deepened in the regard for nation, for truth, for genuine personal and systemic development. So there, no? Our final input is on how to set up the online classroom. Let me check my watch. We have 20 minutes to do this, no? Until 3:30. So let me introduce to you the way by which we are setting up online classrooms at present. Okay? Ito yung mga hindi natin napagtuunan talaga ng pansin noong first year ng COVID, no? Kasi bigla tayong nag-shift. Bigla tayong lumipat, no, sa online systems without any regard for preparation, for the setting up of the infrastructure, for orientations, no, for carefully building up our online classroom. So there are basically 10 steps, no, starting from assessing needs, estimating costs, planning outcomes, designing the classroom itself, preparing contents, enabling communications, preparing assessment methods, testing and planning procedures, and then finally setting up the system and maintaining the system. Okay. But now that we have, had enough time to consolidate, now that we have had enough time to rethink our approach to online education, then maybe these things can now help us come up with a more responsible and a more responsive online classroom for ourselves and our students. No? Remember, even as we go back to face-to-face learning, there will still be circumstances that will demand the use of the online classroom. And even if we go back to face-to-face setups, there is a lot in online systems that we can still continue using in our physical classrooms. Like, for example, we can still give asynchronous learning components, even though we are back to our on-site classrooms. So let us see number one. No? The first, assessing needs and the necessary conditions to satisfy them, means taking into consideration the availability of students, no? Their access to the course site, and the performance of the necessary interactions. We have to ask the presence of institutional support like funding, time allocation, technical resources, a well-trained staff or a well-trained faculty. No? In the PCCR, for example, no? Here in our school, In 2020, when the decision to shift to digital classrooms was made, faculty spent 1 month training themselves on how to conduct Google Classroom. Okay? And then when a new learning management system was developed by the school that had more features than the Google Classroom, teachers again were summoned on site for a 1 month long in-house seminar training program, no? Where they were taught the use of the new learning management system. So, isang buwan talaga na pinag-aralan nila kung paano gamitin yung sistema. So, may mga ganun ba tayo ngayon, no? At magagawa ba natin sila ngayon in preparation for the next surge or for the next round of online systems? Meron na ba tayong administrative policies and procedures rather than the ad hoc policies noon, no? Alam niyo yung mga policies natin noon, parang reactive, di ba? Ad hoc, meaning spur of the moment. But now we have time to lay them down in more stable, more permanent, or more considerable pronouncements. No? Second, we estimate the development cost, effort, and implications. No? Dati, most of the cost was shouldered by faculty and by students. No? Now that we have time to plan and to think about it, no? Let us consider these questions. How long is it going to take to develop the virtual classroom? What technological tools will be needed? And more important, how much will they cost? What types of equipment will they require? How much will the development impact the instructor's workload? How much will it impact the teaching methods? What are the school's web publishing and internet access policies? How much of the total content is already available in electronic format? And how much will still be designed by the faculty? In the 1 month long training last August of our faculty in the LMS, they spent much of that 1 month designing their own content and uploading it into the LMS. No? Another question is, what will be the software or the hardware requirements? What will be the software hardware requirements for the teachers, no? For the students? Okay? How much will we shoulder and how much will be the sharing? Step 3, the teachers will now plan for the outcomes, no? Ano yung mga, it's important that this be done before the academic year, no? Plaplanuhin mo na yung outcomes mo for the whole year. Plaplanuhin mo na kung paano mo papalabasin yung mga outcomes na yan. Titignan mo na kung ano yung mga outcomes na possibly hindi mo ma-attain and paano mo sila i-compensate. At plaplanuhin mo na yung mga strategies mo, di ba? At ilalagay mo na lahat yan sa LMS mo para yung buong taon smooth, walang problema. Okay. Step 4 is designing the virtual classroom. And we are very lucky. We're very lucky because we have Google Classroom. Nandiyan na sa Google Classroom lahat at sanay na tayo sa paggamit nito. No? What is wonderful about Google is that every month, Google comes out with a new feature very helpful to teachers. No? At ngayong pandemic, nagpapasalamat tayo because Google has transformed its interface into a more teacher-friendly interface, no? With so many things that the teacher can use to facilitate the delivery of lessons. Okay? And then, no, after doing all those things, preparation of content, we test run them. No? We see if they are really understandable. We see if they are, easily understood. We see if they are exciting, fun, interesting, no, etc. And then we kind of tweak them together. We learn how to import, create, and edit images, sounds, graphics and animations, and even videos. Step 6 will now be our concern for how our students can communicate with us and how they can communicate with each other. Okay, and what how best to maintain that and go about it. 7 is now our quizzes and exams. No? We prepare them already. No? Should the virtual classroom contain quizzes? What about online assignments? What about student evaluation? How will we implement them online? How will you address cheating? How will assignment tests, etc., be submitted? No? Now, to be sure, many LMSs already have automated ways of checking, computing grades, uh, and delivering the grades as feedback to students. No, our LMS here at our new LMS here at PCCR, for example, checks examinations, computes the grades, and allows the student to view their performance test results even seconds after they had taken the quiz. For major exams, mag-exam yung estudyante, pag nakapag-exam yung estudyante, immediately makikita na ng estudyante ang kanyang grade. Hindi lang yung kanyang score sa test, kundi yung kanyang grade. So pagkatapos ng midterm exam, after the last exam or after each exam, makikita na ng estudyante yung kanyang midterm grade. So ganyan ka-design, no? So in short, hindi na mag-check yung teacher, hindi na magko-compute yung teacher, hindi na mag-rank ng teacher ng grades, at hindi na magpapakita sa mga estudyante yung teacher ng kanilang mga grades. Bahala na yung LMS sa lahat ng mga ito, no? Ang gagawin lang ng teacher, gumawa ng exam. Yan, no? Pero lahat ng ito ginagawa niya before the academic year. So yung summer break na yan, yung sa summer break, ginagawa ng teacher yung syllabus, ginagawa niya yung content, ginagawa niya yung strategies, ginagawa niya yung quiz, ginagawa na niya lahat. No? Tapos ina-upload na niya lahat sa LMS. At dinidesign na niya kung anong araw magbubukas yung quiz, magbubukas yung lesson, magsasabit yung bata, etc. No? During the semester, therefore, wala na siyang gagawin kundi magmo-monitor, mag-feedback, magkumusta. No? Hindi na siya magle-lecture, hindi na siya magtuturo, hindi na siya mag-discuss. Kasi na-design na niya yung content, nagawa na niya yung mga video, nagawa na niya yung lahat ng mga interactive content doon sa LMS at na-upload na niya. Wala na siyang trabaho kundi mag-monitor, mag-evaluate, mag-assess, tumulong, mag-assist, mag-mentor, mag-coach, makinig sa mga problema, mag-counsel. Diba? So, ayun na, no? Bakit? Kasi nagawa na niya yung online classroom niya even before the semester or the school year started. Step 8 will now be therefore merely implementation. Okay? Bubuksan yung material week by week, tutulungan yung mga estudyante na i-counsel, no? Mag-manage ng kanilang learning, mag-manage ng kanilang mga assignment, etc. No? Step 9 will now be setting up other systems, no? And step 10 will now be following up, no? And maintaining the virtual classroom. So, everything is done therefore beforehand. Everything is set up before the classes even start. So that when the classes start, the teacher will now be simply manager, counselor, mentor, facilitator of learning, rather than actually conducting the lectures. Okay? So here are certain tips to make your online classroom participatory, interesting, and exciting. First, this is very important. Always be present, even in asynchronous components. Be present in synchronous classes. Also be present in asynchronous classes. No? Set expectations. Ask your students, what do you want to know? What do you want to learn? No? And meet those expectations. Show compassion to students. while holding them to high standards. When meeting synchronously, make the students own the session. The synchronous sessions are not yours. They are the students. Your time has passed. Tapos na yung trabaho mo kasi nagawa mo na yung online classroom mo bago pa man nagsimula yung school year. Kaya yung synchronous sessions mo, management na yan. Pagtulong sa mga estudyante. So hayaan mo yung mga estudyante na magsalita, mag-discuss, mag-participate, humingi ng payo, etc. No? That's why you should communicate with students clearly and regularly, set up clear expectations or norms for your class, and help students stay connected outside of the classroom. Plan how much your instruction needs to be delivered synchronously. Kung fully synchronous ka, set up time schedules. Meet with the students. Use time to facilitate discussions, answer questions. Kapag blended ka, allow students to complete part of the curriculum independently and submit via email, Dropbox, LMS, etc. No? Pag fully asynchronous ka naman, no? Design all curriculum to be delivered through the platform with the work submitted via email, Dropbox, or the LMS itself. No? And then you can offer office hours or infrequent sessions for the class to come together face-to-face if needed. No? So, number 5, let the students do the work, but support them online. And always ask for feedbacks. No? Always monitor the following factors: orientation, content, structure, communication, interaction, comprehension, assessment, and engagement. Okay? These are some of the recommended readings. Now notice, no? Many of our resources are actually before COVID. Why? Because online teaching is not new. It was already there even before COVID. But COVID only gave us an opportunity to maximize their use. It gave us an opportunity to use them very extensively and the opportunity to develop ourselves in their employment. The best that I could refer to you here is that book by book, Teaching in a Post-COVID Classroom and Online Teaching at its Best by Nielsen and Goodson. Online Teaching at its Best by Nielsen and Goodson has a new edition published in 2021. No? May COVID experiences na doon. So baka gusto niyong kunin yung Nielsen and Goodson 2021 na Online Teaching at its Best. Where could you get this? Where could you get this? Good news. You can get this online. Okay? They are downloadable online. Okay. So what we have done is introduce to you the online classroom. This will prepare you for the next webinars that lie ahead. Tomorrow we will have 2, and on Sunday we will have a workshop on online classroom building scenarios, no, in the online classroom. Many of the things that we introduced here indicate the idea that preparation is the most important part in online teaching and in online learning. And the online classroom will work best when you prepare for it. Okay? This reminds us of a quote by a very prominent person with which I would like to end this presentation. Okay. This is Abraham Lincoln. What he said is this: if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. The idea is prepare your online classroom well before even entering it. And that will make your classroom much more participative, exciting, and interactive. So with that, I end my presentation and open the uh, classroom, our own online classroom for questions and answers. So it's exactly 3:30.
Thank you, Sir Jopo. Dear teachers, if we have questions po for Sir Jopo, if now is the time to ask them, you can use the raise hand icon po or the chat box for your questions. Kanina, I think in the earlier part of the discussion, Sir Jopo highlighted that even as we return to face, there is still a very important role played by the virtual classroom or yung online classes. Sir Jopo, how do you see, for example, if you can if you have any idea, yung sa learning continuity plan natin as we go back to full face-to-face for elementary and secondary, how much kaya of preparation do we need for parang backup or parang supplement our face-to-face classes, yung online classes natin?
Yeah. What we indicated a while ago is that there are basically two reasons why online learning is still very very relevant today. No? The first is what Dr. Priya said about learning continuities. No? Very important. If there is a disruption caused by certain events or incidents, no, then learning must continue despite the disruption. And digital learning or online learning is still the best way to continue the learning even with these disruptions arising. The question of Dr. is, uh, what is the best way to ensure that continuity? What is the best way to prepare for that continuity? The best thing about online learning is that we can store them. We can store materials. We can uh, file them in certain storage areas that are very, very well protected. The best way is to use cloud storage, which is readily available in Google format. Google allows the individual user a 15 gig memory, 15 gig storage, where you can put all your materials, all your files, all your videos, no, all your content, no, and it will be safe for retrieval during continuity times, no, during periods that you need continuity. And even if you will not be, live, as they say, even if you will not do online selling or live selling, you can easily retrieve them and go through them for your students' continued learning and continued development. So that's one. No? Second, uh, the reason is aside from continuity needs, the reason is there is a lot that we have learned from doing online coursework in COVID times that we can still use even if there is no COVID. No? And I'm talking about the asynchronous development and the asynchronous strategies that we have employed. So imagine, nagtuturo ka na on-site, but you are still harnessing the potential of online learning by assigning your students the same type of research, the same type of activities, the same type of material that you had been assigning to them during COVID, but now within the classroom. So, example, suppose you have group works inside the classroom. You have given them a certain idea to think of and to brainstorm. Imagine your students in group works, in the classroom, bringing out their gadgets, bringing out their laptops, and researching on your question, discussing what they found in this internet sources. No? So it will make discussions more lively. It will make discussions more open to internet sources, di ba? So hindi na lang, ang problema natin noon, pag pinag-discuss natin yung ating mga estudyante ng isang issue, wala silang
Ang masabi. Oo.
But now, okay, bring out your laptops, bring out your gadgets. This is the question. 15-minute research, 10-minute discussion, 10-minute presentation. Then they will put it up. And they are experts there. All you will have now to do is to screen the data, screen the information, make sure that they do not come from disputable sources or unreliable sources, and you're there. You have managed to use what we have learned during COVID times and integrated them into your classroom in non-COVID times. So two ways. Okay. So,
Yun lang Sir Jopo, 'di ba, in the past, tama yung sinasabi mo na it reduces the possibility or the need to have makeup classes. Wala nang makeup class, wala nang naghahabol ng calendar days because it can be supplemented already by your online classroom or virtual classroom. Nandun na yung hours eh. Minsan sosobra ka pa nga.
nandun na yung continuity.
Oo. Talagang ganun. Pero sir, ang nakikita ko pang isang limitation na hindi na-discuss kanina na I think ramdam ng mga teachers natin who are participating today because they're from DepEd, yung it heightens the digital divide. Kasi nga, 'di ba, many of our students don't have access or limited yung access. Meron silang access kasi nagpe-Facebook yan, nagge-games yan, so merong gadget yan, merong pang internet. Kaya lang yun sigurong yun yung ano bang ang magandang term doon. There is more advantages to it harnessed by those who are more who have more access to the gadgets and the internet connectivity rather than those in the um, less affluent communities. Parang yun yung nakikita kong isang mahirap i-address as of now.
Yeah, I agree. That's an interesting observation, and I think I should have put in something about that, the digital divide. Our response to the digital divide, however, is not to limit those who have, but create the infrastructure so that those who have not can catch up with those who have. No? And we are very fortunate that there are some private sector groups that are contributing and pitching in to address this digital divide. No? We observe this, for example, in alumni organizations, alumni associations, in some schools who have banded together during COVID to deliver hardware and software to schools who are now using them, these donations, to address the digital gaps, no, in their own sectors. Now, for the schools who do not have yet this kind of a collaboration between themselves and their alumni, it would be very good for them to explore these kinds of arrangements. No? In LGUs, no? In many LGUs, definitely we have to admit this, an increasing number of LGUs are also trying to help more remote barangays and students in their areas of responsibility by engaging the services of digital experts to piggyback providers on electric wires. No? Baguio is doing that. No? Baguio has a project like that. Iloilo, I think, it is planning to do that. Zamboanga is planning also to do that. Ang mangyayari, yung providers like Smart or Globe, sa halip na mag-set up sila ng towers, no? Sa halip na mag-set up sila ng transmitters, no? I-piggyback nila yung signals nila sa electrical wires running through all the LTE. In short, lahat ng barangays na may kuryente makakatanggap na ng signal, no? And this is still in the infancy stage, but there are signs that we are going to have that within the next couple of years, no? And so regarding the digital divide, yes, we have that, but it doesn't mean that we have to, halt the progress of those who have more so that the others could catch up. The idea is let them have it, no? Let those who have connectivities, accessibilities, no? Let them use it to their advantage. But there is a lot of things going on also below, no? In order to assist those who don't have this kind of level of accessibility to catch up or at least close the gap, no? In a significant way. And things are exciting in this manner because if we read magazines and papers, uh, many uh, many organizations are trying to really give in what they could, no? To improve this kind of systems. I don't know if in the future they are thinking of some profit from these arrangements, no? Uh, Perhaps, no? Perhaps these groups are thinking that we will assist them now so that we can come up with our own profits later, no? But let's not get ahead of ourselves, no? In that direction, no? Let us try to take advantage of this assistance, of these kinds of developments and improvements, so that uh, the students in far-flung areas or in areas which do not have yet uh, connectivities will be able to enjoy also these kinds of new learning modalities and platforms, no? So ayun.
Yan. Thank you, sir. Kasi I think this has already begun with the installation of internet access points sa mga
Yeah.
public area. So I think yun na yung simula nung sinasabi mo, sir, na they're piggybacking on electric lines and electric poles infrastructure. No? So tama po, talagang nararamdam naman natin yung improvement din ng ating internet access.
Compare nyo nung kasisimula ng COVID sa ngayon, no? Di ba? Nung kasisimula ng COVID, mga siguro 2010 to 2008, ang bagal ng improvements, di ba? Pero 10 years yan. Pero from 2020 to 2022, ang bilis ng developments. No? So parang humabol tayo.
Yes, we did. Yun na lang, cost na lang ang issue natin. Oo, tama. May question po ba tayo kay Sir Jopo? I think very clear yung discussion natin ngayon. In retrospect, maganda yung discussion natin kasi it is a reflection also of what our experiences are with online classes and explores yung mga possibilities na pwede natin gawin for online classrooms given na we are also having face-to-face classrooms. Ang dami niyang potential that we are yet to explore. And in the coming sessions, Sir Jopo also said na marami tayong makikita how we can further maximize the potentials of the online and virtual classroom. Sir Jopo, final word siguro before we end our synchronous session this afternoon.
Okay. Teachers, we have learned a lot in the past 2.5 years. No? We have learned a lot in easing our concerns regarding online teaching. No? Nang problema tayo noong una, pero nagawa nating maka-develop ng iba't ibang pamamaraan to make it work for us. No? And that is the purpose really of technology. If technology doesn't make our tasks in teaching easier, more efficient, and more facilitated, it won't work for us. But we did it, and it's somehow a sin if we let go of it. So yung mga pag-aaral na yan, yung mga developments na yan, huwag nating itapon dahil lang babalik tayo sa face-to-face. No? We can integrate it with face-to-face teaching and we can become better educators for it. More knowledgeable, more adept, more flexible, more adaptive to the coming times. So let's do it.
Thank you, Sir Jopo. We'll see you
Thank you.
again on Sunday. Sir, pasend po ulit ng ating presentation for this afternoon so we can share it with our teachers.
Yes, I will.
Thank
Thank
you po. Thank you also, dear teachers, for actively listening, and I'm sure dina-digest natin yung ating learnings from this afternoon. It's only setting the context for the further discussions in our next sessions. I know po nagfe-face-to-face classes na tayo, but the online classroom is something that we need to continue with, because yun nga po yung mga advantages nito. We need to harness them to further supplement and complement our face-to-face classes. So the 2 sessions tomorrow po will further explore virtual scenarios, the use of virtual scenarios to improve our pedagogy. Whatever subjects you are teaching, ito pong mga di-discuss natin for tomorrow, you can use it and you can implement it in your own classrooms to further improve the learnings of our students. Thank you very much po, and we can now move on to our asynchronous session. You can answer the assessment tool. Yung atin pong assessment tool, nasa Facebook page po natin yun. Ida-download lang po natin and we can answer assessment for session 1. Tomorrow po, reminder, whole day po tayo. 8:30 po yung morning session natin and 1:30 po for our afternoon session. Again po, our membership link is up on our FB group page for those who are interested. Our cutoff po for membership is 5 p.m. tomorrow so that we can prepare your certificates and send it with your certificates for this program. Maraming salamat po, dear teachers. We'll see you again tomorrow.